Welcome everybody to our Sunday Truth Talk here from Florida. My name is Jona Bryndis, your energy coach and energy healer. My talk today here with all of you is looking ahead of what we are experiencing right now. So obviously we're still in the middle of all this corona situation. I prefer to call it situation. I've produced a lot of videos about how to self-heal, how to protect yourself, how to strengthen your immune system, all these self-healing fundamentals of making healthier and higher vibrational choices. But today I want to look at another aspect of all of this, and that is how we are going to deal with the aftermath, and who of us really is going to be there to clean up, to deal with, some of these things that are coming in here through all these fundamental changes. I mean, I don't need to point out how this has never been there before, and how all this is unprecedented. You hear this in the news every day. And quite frankly, what we are seeing here as a total collective, as a global collective, is that there are a lot of theories, there's not enough data yet, and nobody really has a plan. So it's kind of like as if nobody ever thought about how to globally deal with problems. But before I go into this, and I'm going to share a little bit of my own story and how I actually got to become an energy coach and to help healing professionals, but also business owners in learning how to adjust to this quantum awareness and to become a little more visionary. And you see a poll here that is asking you what generation you're from. All right, so if you are born before 1954, then you are part of the baby boomers. If you were born between 1955 and 1980, if you were born between 1981 and 1995, then you are part of the millennials, and we're going to talk about the millennials a lot today. And if you were born between 1996 and 2010, then you statistically belong to the Generation Z. Now, these belongings are not really important here if we look at, the situation that we're all faced with. It doesn't matter what generation we belong to. We all have to deal with the now. We all have to deal with the fears. We all have to deal with all these uncertainties and things about the future. But there is one big difference here between those generations, and don't get too fixated on the numbers, like with the millennials, our generation. I mean, I'm like old folks, right? We pretty much call all young people millennials, which of course isn't really correct, but just to sort of give us a feeling here from where you are watching from, and kind of like roughly what generation or what age you are. Okay, so the difference is that if you are a baby boomer, then you are probably something, well, at least sort of in your 60s, in your mid-60s and up. If you are a Generation X, like myself, okay, mid-50s, then you are looking at, maybe another 25 years of sort of conscious living in this world. If you're a millennial, you're looking at anywhere from another 40 to 50 years in this world. And if you're Generation Z, which is, the kids or the people that are, like in their early 20s right now and a little younger, you pretty much have your whole life in front of you. And so this Truth Talk here today is also addressed at you, because you are the guys, the younger guys, who have to deal with all the aftermath in the long run. For me, as an energetically sensitive and a visionary, looking at today's situation is almost like boring, okay? Because everybody perceives today, so I thought, all right, but I found out, roughly 20 years ago, it dawned on me that actually not everybody perceives reality like I do. I always thought there was something wrong with me. And so I started my career here as energy healer, first working with kids through a nonprofit organization, helping them to self-heal. Because there was one thing I noticed, and that was this sort of outcasting of all these kids with ADHD and high functioning autism, spectrum kids and so forth. And I really felt that I was one of them. All right, I made it through my school career. I made it somewhat on crutches through college. I wanted to be a chemist. I have a very scientific mind, but never ended up really working in it because it didn't feel right. Nothing in what I saw there in this world really felt right. So what did I do? I did what many millennials do nowadays. I just went with where I could make the most money the fastest, and that made me end up becoming a spokesperson and also part of the computer revolution, the internet revolution. So that aside, all right, 20 years ago, when I really focused on working with children and their parents and how to increase their chances in the school system and also in the world out here, I realized one thing, and that is parents don't really want to know. Parents just look at how well their kids function, and if they don't function, then that means extra work, that means extra trouble, that means extra cost. All right. And so I realized that if I wanted to make a change, I really have to work with these children. And so I started a tutoring school in 2009 and focused on these kids that had trouble in school. Me knowing that, if I can get them to see the world and themselves differently, then they can excel, then they can become successful. And this was literally the start of my energy healing career, because what I didn't realize at the time was that because I saw the world differently and because I called myself, energetically sensitive and empath, I realized that I was, already part of these newer generations. Everything that I've always said about the future, that I've written about the future, was basically 20 years too early. And when I was younger, I just sort of questioned myself. And I know a lot of you guys have gone through this. A lot of you guys were my age, sort of the new age or light worker types, the empaths that didn't understand the world because, we really had different values than the world around us. And I saw that in these new generations. And I'm like, dudes, I know what you need to do. All right. And I started to research this. I started to work with them. I helped them to success. And that was, 11 years ago. And then I realized that what I'm actually doing here is teaching them energy work, energy awareness. I help them to get past some of their dyslexia or their ADHD by using completely unusual tools, or that no psychologist or no educator really accepted at the time. And it was fun. I loved it. I loved working in this way, bypassing the matrix, if you will. And this is then what has led to transCODES, where I am doing this professionally with business owners and with people who identify themselves as energetically sensitives, who need a reference system, who need a training curriculum to make it possible for them to see the advantage and also the opportunities that comes through this. So this is a long story short here, but it's relevant because what I did yesterday was I republished an article that I wrote in 2014, yes, 6 years ago. And all I really had to do was to change 2 words. And that was something that I referred to as what is coming in the future. I had to change it into present time because it's actually happening right now. And I call this From Zero to Hero. Are millennials the secret sleepers of our global healing? And if you haven't read this article, read it. The link here is in the video description. I'm not a big author. I'm not really, English is not even my native language. So don't expect poetry there, okay? I'm just really pointing at things that I see the way I see them from this sort of energetic truth level. And I get so much positive feedback and, immediate sort of relief from people that read this. And I'm like, dudes, this is a 6-year-old article, but now it fits, okay? Now we all recognize this. And this is what I wanted to talk with you about today. I wanted to see, if you can look past all these things that we are currently dealing with and our individual personal challenges. Some of us have lost family members to the coronavirus. Some of us are currently sick. Some of us are still afraid of getting sick. Some of us are wondering if we already were sick. And all this is quite possible, guys. I've talked about this in the energy tips that I publish on Patreon, by the way, that probably the best way to deal with the scare, with your internal fears, is to just assume you already had it. And why am I saying this? Well, I'm, of course, obviously also teaching self-healing methodologies, things that you can do to increase your awareness and to get through, say, a potential infection, in light speed, like without any bigger damage, all right, is that the fear itself, okay, from an energetic point of view, is such a low vibratory energy field that when you begin to feed this in you, your physical immune system and your etheric immune system goes really, really low. Meaning that, even though probably, 70 to 90% of all of us need to have been infected by the virus at some point to reach something like what they call herd immunity. And this can be accomplished through, of course, infection itself or through vaccines. Okay, this is basically what vaccines do. They do a controlled infection. But there's not enough data there yet, to know if we actually build long-term immunity, if we are still infectious, even though we had it. So all these things aside, okay, those are all the uncertainties. If you focus on, that this is part of our new norm now, this is part of our reality now, okay, and we're going to have to deal with it either way. And if you let go of how things used to be and how we don't like how it is and how, you maybe lost your job over it or, things are not the way they were before. If you just let go of that resistance, okay, you get to a very, very clear stance with all of this. And this is that you cannot control what you cannot control, but you can control what you can control. And toilet paper isn't really helping. All right, we've discussed this here 2 months ago. All right, what really helps is your attitude towards yourself and towards the people that you're with. And this is now my bridge here to talking about generations and why I believe that we, the older folks here, that we have a really, really important job to do right now. And that is to get out of this fear mind and to encourage and empower the younger people, our kids, our grandchildren, all right, to be completely aware of what is going on right now and help them to discern and help them to get out of their sort of generational numbness. All right, so I've addressed a few things in the article, but I would really love to hear from you guys what your opinions are about this. Let me know what where you're posting from and what age you are. Okay, because that makes, yes, Svetlana, that's correct. Toilet paper makes people feel in control. It's relatively cheap and, it's, something that has to do with dealing with our own shit, right? So for as long as it's subconscious, for as long as we have enough toilet paper, we think we don't have to deal with this. But obviously, from a deeper perspective, that is just an illusion. Yeah, so what are these things that you can see, guys, that these future generations, that they gonna have to sort out, that they gonna have to come up with as higher vibratory solutions in order to make this work, as opposed to us old folks, all right? And by age, I am old folks, so I'm, taking responsibility for this, even though I've always been a mouthpiece, for what we need to change. But what do you think are going to be the most important problems that they will have to resolve, the future generations? What do you think they need to come up with, and also, what they need in order to really do this? Looking at it from the perspective of someone who accepts truth as is, and looking at the present moment as in what is being shown right now, what is being brought from the unconscious into the conscious right now. And I've read about it, and I did 2 talks about this right now, and I've called it, we are looking at all the pathologies of our society right now. This is what is being shown to us. We're looking at the pathologies of disconnection. All right, and the pathologies of connection, if you will, or fake connection for that matter. And these are higher vibratory problems, guys. We cannot solve them with war making or, printing another $1 trillion, to put a Band-Aid on things, right? Not even a vaccine really would resolve all these issues that we are now experiencing here as part of this corona situation, because we already have this place now with our economy, for instance, that there's no question about us going into recession through this. There's just market dynamics, okay, that it can no longer be changed. They're already there. Whether or not we go into depression, we'll have to see. There's already signs here of problems with freedom and autonomy, and also how our governments handle things, and the role of certain experts in this, and how the power structure here in this world is really working. It's not working, all right? And there's problems with dependencies on an economic level as well as an individual level, like supply chains, for instance. And it brings up issues with, sort of self-sustainability, right? In a situation like a lockdown, can my country, can my village, can my family even, support itself? So what do you think we will have to face here as the aftermath, and maybe also things that were already there, but that we were kind of shoving under the carpet? Cheryl, you saying gaslighting? Yes, that's the sweeping under the carpet, right? What is that? Like the environmental problems that we're having, overpopulation. Just the whole entire way we treat the planet, not just the actual pollution, but also this exploitation. Yes, consumerism, our financial systems, our economy systems, they don't seem to be very fair, right? Social injustice, our educational system, our support systems, our healthcare systems. There's different in every country, of course, and I was born in Iceland and raised in Germany and live in the United States. So, I can see all these different systems and see extreme differences, and there's different integrities in that as well. Different truth levels on how governments handle things and what they tell their population, their citizens. There's issues with gender and masculine and feminine energy, social issues here, right? And superiorism and tribalism and all this segregation, this division between people. And then we have, my subjects here, how to integrate consciousness and spirituality, how to go quantum really without becoming too transhumanist, but without becoming, too sort of Borg-like. I'm a Star Trek fan. And the other subject is how we can embody a healthy and self-sustaining lifestyle, not just in theory, not just dieting and exercising to look good or to beat aging. No, to actually have a body that we honor and that we respect as part of our journey, and that allows our being to come to its highest expression, and therefore also feeling fulfillment and purpose in life. I'm reading your comments here, guys. Younger generations need to learn to discern truth and express truth. I love this, Gemma. Thank you. Yes, this is the problem they're having, that they don't have enough experience, life experience yet, to know what we know, what we older folks know. Right? Because we've already tried a few things and we've already failed with a few things. And that has led to us become a little more mature. So in an ideal society, the elders, they would be the wise people, right? But right now, this doesn't seem to be the case. We separate, we make fun of the millennials, we degrade them. We don't trust them with anything. We say they're spoiled, they're entitled and unable to fix a tire. Right? That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just pointing this out here. There's a segregation within our society, and that is between the old folks that maintain the gaslighting and just want to maintain status quo and how things were, all right, and pretend it still is there, so this whole fake reality. And then there's a younger generation who looks at us like, they're all cuckoo if they're not seeing how fucked up all this is. Forgive me my English here. Younger generations will need synergy. Nowadays, we see a lot of my team versus your team. And you love this article. Thank you, Magojata. Yes, you're hitting a really important spot there. My team versus your team. Our generations, guys, look at things as winning, wanting to be on the winning team, wanting to be better than others. That is what leads to this segregation, this division, this duality within our own collective. That's what we need to bridge. We need to go into synergy with our younger generations and actually need to respect them on a true self level, on a soul self level, for them as, coming incarnating into this world here that has never experienced a transformation on this level. I think it's time that we respect the younger people more. Yes, Gloria, I agree with you. They have to deal with planetary issues. We didn't have to. Well, we needed to make sure, sort of sort of representative for the stereotypical baby boomer and Generation X thinking was that we had enough money, that we bought a house, that we have the picket fence, and that we have our retirement all sorted out. That is not very planetary. I agree. Yes, Tama, you're right. Natural versus artificial. This will actually be the big task here, looking into 20 years of our future. Yeah, transhumanism is going to be a big integrity, big ethical problem here for these next 20 years. It will not quite yet be part of the aftermath of this 2020 corona crisis, but it will, get triggered through it. There will be things, that they will install as a consequence of this corona situation that will go into this artificial direction. And I've talked about this many times already, and in my energy tips, I go a little deeper into this. I don't want to distract here right now. Sean is sharing, teach the youth that failing and experience are not a bad thing. I love this, Sean. This is what this is all about. Exactly. It's about growth. It's about learning. It's about understanding that Evolution is a continual process of self-correction, exploring, trying, being willing to take a risk, making mistakes, correcting those mistakes, and maturing and growing through this. Yes, and this is what us old folks need to empower you younger folks with. Instead of judging you for your mistakes, instead of criticizing you for that, we should encourage you and empower you to try things. Claire's sharing here. We are all part of this universe and we all have the right to know our true purpose. Yes, enlightenment. Yes, and the integration of spirituality in a non-dogmatic, non-authoritarian way will be a big part of this, Claire. So here within transCODES and my self-healing community, we've cultivated a really beautiful outlook on spirituality, without really feeling limited to any kind of domination or whatever, because it's not about how we personify what we believe to be higher power. It is more important to actually begin to integrate it and to claim it for ourselves, because we all feel the influx here of something higher coming in. All right. And this is the part that we, in our consumerism and materialism, that we've forgotten. And we've forgotten to transport this to our children. And why is that? Why does our generation and our parents' generation, the baby boomers and the Generation X, have such a big problem with this? Do you know why? Because we were taught that making a mistake is the worst thing in the world. So our task here is to become real with our kids and our grandkids and say, we fucked up. Yes, I have a part in this. Not necessarily, specifically, but, I am part of this thinking, okay? And yes, I made mistakes and I've learned from my mistakes, and here is the wisdom. And to encourage our children to explore, to make as many mistakes as possible. That was something that was sort of conditioned out of us here in these last 100 years. The spirit of exploring and of being curious about how things can work out. Yes, there is an entrepreneurial spirit in the Generation X, but that was all fixated on consumerism and materialism, on how to make the most money and how to rip other people off, how to get there the fastest for myself. There was no synergy in there. There was no win-win in there. These younger generations now, the millennials and Generation Z and Generation A, whatever you want to call them, they need to figure out how to work together, because the problems from now on are all going to be global and planetary. Yes. And us pretending is the worst poisonous thing that we can do to our younger generation. No, there is no space anymore for pretending, guys. Sorry if I get a little agitated here. I don't want to, make me, as my generation, feel bad about yourself. I want you to wake up. I want you to understand what the problem is here. The problem is that we are not working together. And yes, of course, from a deeper spiritual perspective, everything can be resolved with love and light and so forth. Yeah, I teach how to use the mechanics of all of that. But it's not going to be resolved by holding hands and singing Kumbaya. We're not there yet as collective, guys. That's an illusion. That's a fantasy. That's like waterfalls and unicorns. That's where, the New Age and the esotericism and light workers, that's where they get this wrong. That's fake positivity. Fake positivity crushes our children because it gaslights them into thinking there's something wrong with them if they're seeing that, oh, this isn't matching up. Do you understand how important that is? We need to be honest with them. We need to become more integrous. And yes, what is in the way of that? Our own shit, our own trauma, our own inner child thing, and daddy this and mommy this. And yeah, my first grade teacher. Yes, we all have those. Those are part of our psychology. Those are all part of our maturing process. But seriously, if you're the one that sees yourself as a victim in the matrix and the dark forces and all that responsible for your misery, how do you think your kids will ever develop a self-sustaining and autonomous lifestyle? They're going to blame you. They're going to be in therapy because of you. Okay? So if you have young children, if you have millennial children, it's not too late. Change this now, guys. Go become real with your kids and empower them. I'll tell you what they need. I tell you what your opportunity is here to mature or to evolve into a wise person and not into this critical grandma voice, okay, in the back of your kids' head. Because what they need more than anything is truth. And the ability, like Gemma said, to discern that. Because there's a lot of, stuff out there, especially in the spiritual scene, that is extremely confusing. And there's maybe 5% truth in there and the rest is complete BS. How are they ever going to learn how to weed through that without, sort of falling into the traps of that? Now, some of them will, and that's also part of the karmic and personal maturing process. That's important. We cannot prevent them from making mistakes. Again, it's not about making mistakes. It's about realizing that what they have to solve is so much bigger than what we had to solve. And we got to get our heads out of our butts and stop focusing on our pain, our trauma, our victimhood, because that is just going to make them more passive and more numb and more separated from us. Because look, what do they have to deal with? They have to deal with students' loans up to the wazoo. They have to deal with financial dependencies. Yes. They have to deal with these relationship issues that are arising out of all of this. They have to deal with gender stuff and social injustice. They have to deal with all these environmental, crushing, things to see, all this sort of being treated like garbage. They have to deal with this disconnection, what we are right now very beautifully experiencing, what that's like, this disconnection from another, and which then, if they are not being taught how important that is, will pave the way for them accepting all the downsides of transhumanism, artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, and artificial consciousness. All right, they need to understand what it means to be human and the power that is in human consciousness. All right, they need to be trained differently. They need to be trained with an energy awareness that empowers them in their own sovereignty, in their own soul sovereignty. They need to deal with this economic depression or recession that is coming out. This will last for like 20, 25 years, guys. There's no picket fence anymore, and forget retirement and flipping houses and real estate riches. That's out the window right now. They're going to have to become creative. They're going to have to become really, really smart about how they're making money. Everything that you taught them on how to make money is gone now because it wasn't based on truth. It wasn't based on integrity. They're going to have to find different ways of dealing with this new reality. They have to develop an entrepreneurial spirit that zooms them into what the societies will need in the future. All right, and this will be things that have to do with healing and self-healing. That's why so many of the younger generations feel this calling to become a healer or be somehow involved in healing on various levels. And don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying this because I'm an energy healer. Healing, all right, is defined through bringing something that is fragmented or unwhole or out of balance back into balance. back into wholeness, back into synergy. That is the true meaning of healing, guys. It's just our old folks thinking mindset that when we hear the word healing, we always think about, oh my God, does this mean that I'm flawed, that I'm imperfect, and grips into all our fears of making mistakes. Skip that. We need to tell the younger generations that they don't need to be afraid of that. To recognize when something is unwhole, to recognize when something is fragmented, when something is not integrous, is part of that discernment. And that's why they need to be trained that way from the beginning. Yes, Annette, thank you for pointing this out. More room for differences rather than these many diagnoses. It's the labeling that we do that puts them into categories, and that's what separates them. Yes, more room. It's diversity, guys. The world in the future is more diverse. Yes, and I often talk about this bifurcation, right? That's, I look at it from a higher consciousness point of view, and we'll have several different views on the world. You'll see it. It'll be really different. Borders and countries, all that is going to be really different. We're going to have corporate nations, and you have no idea. All these things that we relied on, that we took for granted, they're all going to be restructured in the next 20, 25 years. Same with medicine. Same with diagnosis. Neurodivergence, in this article that I mentioned earlier that I published yesterday, I talk about this, all right? Who says that this is a flaw, that this is something that needs to be treated, okay, when you are ADHD or when you are dyslexic? Who says? For me, it's always been an upgrade. All right, for me, as an energy healer, as an energy reader, I can see it. I can see how their brains process information differently. And you know how? More broad, more diverse, more associated, more plasticity, more at the same time. It's just us trying to put them into this linear, well, you have to do things one after one. You can't have fun after before you did your chores. That doesn't work with this way of neurological structure. And there's also things that I will, talk about here right now that have to do with some of the problems that are arising for this generation, that has to do with neurotransmitters. Yes, Heather, I agree. We all have to deal with this together, no matter what the generation. Yes, that's the bottom line. Okay, but right now, I really want to make a case for the younger generations because I honor them and I respect all of you here because you're going to be there for the next 50 years. I'm only going to be there for the next 20 years, 25 years if I'm lucky. All right? And there are some things that you need now, okay? And I want to point them out for you. And I would love to hear, your comments. Also, please, add things to this list. But those are things that I've observed already in these last 20 years of working with younger generations, not just as a teacher and as a guide and as a mentor and as a coach, but also as a mother. I have two sort of millennial generation Z, so right on the border there, children, and I have one, Generation A child. And I can tell you there are distinct differences even between the two. But you know what the cool thing is? If I look at these two newer generations, they work with another in a completely different way. We never did this. We were not taught how to do this. They do this intuitively because their souls incarnated here for this purpose, and they, on the subconscious level, know that. Yes. But what are some of the issues? What are some of the challenges that I see here? And the number one problem, it's the part here where us old folks make fun of you younger guys, is your inability to focus on things. And, you're almost like aversion against sort of sticking with something, your low attention span. Yes. Well, let me tell you something here from research. You don't actually have a low attention span. You just have a different way of choosing what you want to focus on. All right. And rightly so, because if I look at things from your perspective, I see all these truths and all this gaslighting, and yeah, what do you know, right? I mean, this might all be complete BS. So you focus on what gets you the fastest feeling of gratification, because you come from a place where people are criticizing and making fun of you, and this is a problem that you need to work out, guys, because the whole entire software industry and social media and so forth, it takes advantage of this. Here is where you are getting programmed and you're not seeing this, and that is on the neurotransmitter level. All the games, all the software, all the apps, even Facebook, even Instagram, all that, they use a specific arrangement of colors and buttons that trigger dopamine in your brain. Okay? You might not understand this right now when I say it this way, but I also have this insight into the software industry, and I know that this is done deliberately, guys. You have been conditioned to respond to fast dopamine release. And the problem with dopamine as a neurotransmitter, as a sort of a feel-good hormone or substance in your system, is that it doesn't last very long. So you need the next hit, you need the next high, you go for the next thing. Okay, but this was instilled in you, this was programmed into you so that you would become good consumers. Because if you are always on the search for the next hit, for the next high, all right, you'll be spending a lot of money on things such as the newest version of the iPhone, the best Switch and whatnot, okay? Because that's where you get it. If you feel kind of low, you go there, and there you get your neurotransmitter, your dopamine highs. Problem with too high dopamine levels is that it actually influences other neurotransmitters in you, and that's then where things such as anxiety hit you. Okay, so you guys are also the generation with the highest suicide rates and the highest depression and anxiety levels, and this has to do with that, because what you need is more balance. All right, long-term success. All right, feeling adequate, feeling competent, being able to grow above a challenge. And that's, that's serotonin in you that's responsible for that. All right. So you can't just go for the next high, for the next dopamine hit, or, completely check out, maybe through adrenaline, highs, through just like sort of, going and going and doing, sort of the next, wow, oh my God. All right. So those are the two things that are being programmed into you. You also really have to slow down a bit and go within and feel out what it actually is that you want and how you want it and what the steps are to get there. And you are being trained off that, guys. This lowers your serotonin levels, and this makes it impossible for you to feel that you're competent. You guys are phenomenal in sarcasm and inventing memes. I love the millennial memes because I recognize the way my brain's structured, could have never come up with it, but I love it. All right. This is something that you have. You have a new way of creativity, but you are not using it effectively. Okay. And like I've said, part of that is programming. So what you need to learn is to shift your neurotransmitters by self-reflection, to be okay to stand still, to be okay to just stop, to be okay with not looking at your phone and not expecting this next dopamine hit. To learn that, you have to create muscle memory for that. You have to actually, do this over and over again. And I've created tons of programs, and one of them is like 10-minute meditation every day, okay? That will do it for you, okay? Or 10-minute yoga or whatever it is. Not to be hip or to look good or to wear the latest Lululemon pants, but to actually unhook your system, your neurological, your physiological system from these dopamine hits, because that makes you addictive. So this will be your biggest issue, guys. You have to consciously go against this. This is very, very important that you understand that. The other side of that coin is also the numbing. okay? Because many of you are very energetically aware and sensitive, but you don't really have the reference system. You don't have a roadmap for that yet. You really need to educate yourself on these things, because what you're feeling, a lot of the things that you're feeling, they have nothing to do with psychology. You know, most of the therapists out there, if they're not trained in energy work on some level, all right, they will, correct you. You know, they will send you or medicate you, okay? You are having visions, guys. You are seeing things. And I want to make a big shout out here on to all of you guys who think that plant medicines are the answer. I want to give you a differentiated view on this. I don't want to be the grandma voice in the back of your head. I just want to let you know that weed, however you ingest it, is not the answer. It makes it worse. And if you don't believe me anything, okay, I'm an energy reader. I see what it does to people. I help them to heal the damage that is being done on an etheric level, on an auric level, if you will, through long-term consumption of weed. And I can tell you that this is one of the most difficult things to recover from. All right, if you are afraid of dark entities, energies, demons, and so forth, this is the worst thing that you can do, because it numbs you and it fragments your etheric. It lowers your etheric immune system and you become fodder. You literally become fodder. This is what is happening right now, guys. Right now is a massive harvesting of life force energy because people resort into numbing. Are there plant medicines that are beneficial? Absolutely. It's just specifically THC in your system that does the opposite of what you think. And you can use it on a medicinal level for pain management, absolutely. But not for numbing your energetic sensitivity. It makes it worse. There are new phenomena, juvenile schizophrenia and so forth, that are proven to be related to early marijuana consumption and continual, like every day. Guys, this is a big deal for me as an energy healer because I work with this every day, okay? And this is my expertise, okay? This is how I started, as someone who does energy clearings with my husband together. This is how we started, okay? To help people to free them from these energetic attachments. And if you keep smoking weed, you are making it worse. There is no way for even people like myself who are trained in this to help you, because you got to stop it, okay? Mushrooms and so forth, all that is no big deal. Ayahuasca, those are all things that you can use if you are in this sort of consciousness expansion journey, okay? But they are not there for you to seek the high. They're there for you as teachers. And plant medicines, plant spirits can teach you certain things and they can heal you. Those more psychedelic plant medicines, they are just there to teach you something, not to heal you. That is what you can do with herbs and, a lot of other things, oils and plant medicines, in terms of healthy foods. So your guys' job here will really be to tune more into your health awareness and to actually embody this, guys. You need to become more energetically aware and health aware, okay? Because there's a lot of misinformation out there that is bombarding you, okay? What's supposed to be healthy. Other things, and this is something that I really love about the younger generations, that you already figured out, and that is resource sharing. This is going to be a big trend, like things such as Airbnb and even Uber and Lyft and so forth. They're just sort of the beginning stages of this. You guys will be okay with, renting a big mansion, with 4 people, even if you have like really good jobs, because you no longer need to own everything on your own. You guys are ahead a few steps here from my generation that still thinks it has to be mine. All right, so this will develop even farther. And what will come out of this resource sharing is things, businesses and entrepreneurial developments that are more in sort of what we today call network marketing. So I'm a huge fan of network marketing, and I've always seen this as part of my vision. Home-based businesses with very little overhead, where you use your connection with other people, all right, to distribute products, high quality integrous products, and at the same time also build a network, a business with them together. There's a huge thumbs up on all network marketing companies with integrous products. Not all network marketing companies have integrous products, but you don't need to worry about them because they pretty much don't make it anyway. In the future, integrity and this whole sort of ethical restructuring of businesses and our economy and political and financial systems will change all that anyway. It will lead to us becoming more community oriented, more small business oriented, because we will recognize that there's more autonomy and more self-sustaining spirit in staying local. All right. And this is something that I'm actually looking forward to, because I have been suggesting this to people all along. Anybody who've asked me, what should I invest money in? All right. I've said for years, okay, go into urban farming, anything that can, help to either sustain or produce or renew resources such as food and energy. All right, there's a huge business potential here in the aftermath. Okay, finding your mission, finding your purpose, the very thing that you are sort of the most lost at right now. All right, will come through you recognizing what is true to you, and you don't need the older generations to tell you that, but you need to be encouraged and empowered to go out and try, because the anxiety comes from all this old programming, which is, don't make mistakes, and if it doesn't work, then you just have to try harder. No, your brains are wired to try in a different way, to try it in a new way. You guys need to try things differently. The more different they are from how our generations have done things, the better. I've always been encouraging people to think backwards. So hopefully you guys will be the ones that can think backwards. And those of you who have the luck to have energetically aware parents, all right, you are going to be the future leaders, because they've already transported things to you that will help you to overcome all these challenges that are still there, that we still have to deal with right now and in the short term. But for the long term, guys, you guys are already equipped to deal with all of this. You guys have the tools that are needed to succeed. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Instead of questioning yourself, instead of being afraid of the future just because the older folks can't really sort it out, all right, trust in your inner guidance and feel your purpose from within yourself, from your soul self, okay? That's the direction where you need to look. So this was my weekly rant here, and sort of pep talk, a supposed pep talk. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for commenting, for contributing. I'm not seeing all of your posts here, unfortunately. This is an issue that I haven't resolved yet. How to be more online with your commentary. Please continue commenting. Sign up for my YouTube channel. There's a lot more videos, a huge archive there of videos talking about energy awareness, future vision, and so forth. And if you want the news, if you want the article that I was referring to here, then just sign up for the newsletter and you get that in your email. Thank you so much, guys.